Mike Grabham here today. We are excited to be here here at sunny Seattle, Washington. Yes, sunny in the summer here. So today we have a special guest from Boston, Mass. Jason Krause. He is going to be talking about, or we'll both be talking about, investors, pitch decks, etc. So if you are pitching or getting ready to pitch, then probably worthwhile to take a view at this live stream. Again, my name is Mike Grabham. I am the guy that is your startup guide. I help you through the journey, and I help people launch ideas and help them refine those ideas and hopefully find a target market, and sometimes not find a target market. So that's what I do. So each week I do a couple shows, and we're talking about things that help you as a startup founders. We're going to start. I'm going to throw it over to Jason. Jason, thank you for being here. Appreciate it, and I'll let you kind of do a short intro, and let's get this party started.
Yeah, no, I appreciate that. It's great to be here. Thanks, Mike. Yeah, I love these live streams. I've been watching them, and excited to be on one now. Yeah, Mike and I are both chapter directors for Startup Grind, the global networking community for startups that does fireside chats, events, and conferences. So yeah, Mike runs the Seattle chapter. I run the Boston chapter, and always looking to connect with new entrepreneurs and startups, and have had the chance to meet incredible entrepreneurs that probably wouldn't have met otherwise. But yeah, one of my passions is just working with early stage companies. I'm involved in an angel group, or an angel fund / micro VC fund called EQX Funds,
Cool.
which is basically a fund, in part, or I work with the head of the Boston Harbor Angels group, Ziad Muhaber, and some of our deals come through there, some we're sourcing ourselves, but our real focus is on investing in leaders, entrepreneurs, and that have either proven themselves in previous startups or in the corporate world, and or just even with their current ventures to be real leaders of the company. Part of why I started, so about 3.5 years ago, I started a company, Prepare for VC, that I'm going to be telling you guys a little bit more about today, and helping you prepare for your own venture raises or even angel raises as well. I'd seen there's still a trend in the industry. It's only about 1.5% of startups ever get any sort of venture financing, and I'd seen a lot of great. I was working at another venture group in the past, and I'd seen a lot of great startups just fall through the cracks. It's hard, yeah, when most investors are receiving 100 decks a month. Some venture funds will invest in 4 or 5 startups a year. Some are investing, even 10, but out of those, they go through a lot of pitch decks and reviews that they'll never, they're filtering down pretty early on and never even get the chance to meet. So
yeah, there's a lot of noise in the field, right? There's a lot of noise out there.
Exactly. So I was just set out on a mission that wanted to help startups create better pitches, better first impressions that they could get in front of investors, and something that an investor can read, be excited about in the first 30 seconds to 3 minutes that they review, and want to dig in deeper for further diligence and deep dives with the founders.
And Jason, how long have you been kind of on the angel investor side of the world? How long have you been doing that? As part of the micro fund and the angel fund there in the Boston area.
Yeah, I'd say about 4 or 5 years now. Wow. I actually started. So I was at a grad program at Babson College, and actually started as an intern with the Boston Harbor Angels group, and I've stuck with it through the different venture funds I've been involved with since then. And it's really it's a pretty tight knit community and great group. There's 30 to 50 people from different backgrounds, entrepreneurs themselves, more financial investors, and just everybody comes together and gives their own opinions and expertise on each startup that comes through. So definitely learned a lot
Yeah.
along the way that I can
You know
apply
what
to
I
different
think
companies.
what's important to kind of have people realize is how much inter talk happens between you guys. Like people sometimes don't realize that investors talk, right? Angel investors talk,
Right.
members of the fund, they talk. So it's obvious for a VC, but for when you're talking to an angel group, I mean, you guys are talking, kind of constantly about different deals, about different founders. Like, what have you learned through that process of just, like, I just call it the inner chatter of an organization, right? And it's a loosely knit organization, right? It's not like you guys go to the same office and work every day. So tell me about that.
Yeah. No, I mean, there is a lot of talks. So basically how those angel meetings, and it's somewhat similar between different groups, but they all have their own unique spin on it. But basically the process is you go, a group of startups, call it 8 for the Boston Harbor Angels, get invited to a screening meeting, which is about 10 or 12 10, 15 of the investors go to that. And really, it's a lot longer time period. It's pretty much throughout a day we're reviewing companies and selecting the ones that go to the general meeting. Then at the general investor meeting, there's 4 companies presenting, and they'll do their 10-minute pitch, pretty good portion for Q&A and investor questions, and then at the end, basically kick all the founders out of the room, and all the
Yeah,
investors just discuss.
sure.
We go through the pros and cons of each deal.
Yeah,
And yeah, that's probably the most important. I mean, besides the pitches themselves, like that's really any company that comes in. You get to hear other investors in the group, like if they've seen a similar startup in this space before, if they have experience in the industry. A lot of like I said, a lot of these angels are industry veterans, or they
yeah,
they might have been part of the industry in the past, and they can say, like, even as a user, if this is something they would have used, or that would have helped them in their own venture, that they can sort of validate this problem that the startup is addressing.
yeah. And you probably have groups of, there's probably 1 or 2 or 3, 4, 5 people that have been investing for 10, 15, 20 years,
Right.
right? That have, just a lot of knowledge and a lot of just, information that they've learned over the years. And those guys probably,
Yeah.
they're good to have around, right? They share some good stuff. And then they have somebody like you who's newer that obviously has a different insights and different opinions, and, it all kind of mixes together, right?
Right. And I'd say even you know, one of the topics that always comes up in these discussions is, obviously it's a 10-minute pitch, so you don't know everything about, we've dug in a
Sure.
little bit deeper beforehand, but you don't know everything about the company yet.
Yeah.
But a lot of the discussion revolves around the leadership team, and, the present, how they are as a presenter, how open they were to feedback between the screening meeting and the investor meeting. More of the management style. You can see, like, can we as investors, if they're raising a larger round that we might not fill ourselves, can we see them going out,
Yeah,
and
exactly.
pitching and raising the rest of the round pretty easily?
Yeah.
Or
So
is it going to be a struggle for them? Yeah.
yeah, it's important I think it's really important for people to hear that, is the fact that you're talking about, there's more things than just the idea, right? Of just the company's idea or the company's progress or lack thereof, but you're talking about personalities and how they interact with other people, and, how they've
Right.
just taking feedback. All those things are so important that people, they forget that, like, they're so focused on the idea, they sometimes forget about they got to be a good human being, right?
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah. Well, let's get started, Jason. Again, Mike Grabham here again today. We're talking with Jason Krause from wonderful Boston area. We're talking about pitches, what to have in pitches, and investors, how to target those. So why don't we kind of start wherever you want to start, Jason, talking about pitches, and we'll kind of go from there.
Yeah, that sounds great. Yeah, do you want to pull up the deck we prepared?
You got it. You got it. There you are, my friend.
Cool. Sounds good. Yeah, and if you could go to the first slide there.
Yeah. Let me get there. There you go.
Cool. So, yeah, I wanted to start with a topic, about the most common mistakes I've seen in pitch decks. So basically, yeah, like I mentioned before, it's it's really important. You got to remember, investors are they could be receiving 100 decks every month, and really have to be able to spot right away which companies they want to follow up with and get them excited at that first impression. So I've definitely seen presentations with way too much info, a lot of text on the slide that goes really technical into a product, and it can be kind of overwhelming and leave the investors like sort of bombarded with information, and they realize at the end of the pitch, we still we have all this information but don't really know what problem the company is solving and how they're solving it differently than everybody else. So it's important, and that sort of ties into the next one of not having enough info. It's important to really focus on the key statements and problem, like the key areas you want to drive home with the investors, and show what the problem you're.
Jason, what is the thing that is like when you're creating a pitch deck, what is the purpose, in your opinion? What's the purpose of that pitch deck? Like, if there's to be one or maybe two things that it has to serve, what are those one or two things?
Yeah, so I'd say, the first one is there's a real need, or either a problem or a need that exists in the market and that your company can solve. And then, really getting investors excited about the opportunity there. And sort of on that word, like presenting it as an opportunity, not, it is you're asking for investment, but you want them to sort of see this as an opportunity for the investor to get in early on in what could be a really valuable company.
Yeah. Also, I forgot to mention, if anyone has any questions, go ahead and leave them in the comments. We'll be happy to answer them on the fly, whatever those may be. Just go ahead and throw them in the comments, and I'll see them, and we'll get them answered for you. So go ahead, Jace.
Yeah. So I've seen so that part is definitely important. Not knowing your competition, like I can't tell you how many how many companies say we're the first startup to do this, and other investors have already seen even whether it's within the group or just going to other. We're all pretty active going to other startup events, and we might know 3 other companies in your space, but when a startup, so I mean, it actually helps when a startup like presents in their presentation, they show a list of the other competitors. It could even be some big names that you might be afraid at first of like putting big name competitors on your list, but if you can showcase like either some features that you have that'll draw people away from these other competitors, or just why you guys are different and what the real advantage is over that would cause somebody to switch from another platform to yours, really adds a lot of value versus takes away from the investment opportunity.
And how is Jason? How is the when you when you have a pitch deck that's, good, what you would consider good, do people ever say, hey, that was a good pitch deck?
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, I think they say like it's, yeah, it was yeah, a good pitch deck, or, a good presentation itself.
Yeah.
Yeah, I've definitely seen the other side too, or, we've had some conversations too on, like, especially in a group setting or angel group, deciding which companies go on to the general investor meeting, of which ones are exciting presentations as well, like which ones, um, yeah, like which ones can really get everyone, get everyone enthusiastic about what the company's doing. Like, at the end of the day, if we're, um, obviously there's a financial perspective to
Well, sure.
investing. We're hoping,
But there's also still emotional. It's still emotional. People still have to have emotion around buying, right? So it's like, hey, it's really exciting about that, or it's really interesting, or
yeah,
there
and
still has to be that existing in an idea or a product.
right, and you want, you also want your investors, like, excited about this too, to be, um sorry, once, yeah, you want them to be, when they're, yeah, you want your investors excited that, when they're out talking with other investors in the community, like, you're one of the first, in portfolio deals they mention, and, like, share the story of how they found this really cool, exciting company that's doing, whatever your product is or your platform.
Yeah,
But yeah, you want them to be really excited about what you're doing as well, and that can shine through in, like, the way you present. It's especially important for, companies that rely more on marketing, and, are going to be sort of those high growth, like more of a consumer technology or platform play.
yeah,
Because, if we're reviewing how, and it's early on, and we're reviewing how, somebody can market and scale their services, the first step is being able to market and sell your vision to the investors.
yeah, yeah. And so in that process of creating that pitch deck, um, do you guys, is it normal or maybe abnormal that you would say to someone, hey, love your idea, your pitch deck sucks, fix your pitch deck? I mean, is it that kind of feedback, or is it just you just kind of, since they just didn't do it, they're just kind of gonna go on? I mean, what kind of happens there if sometimes you kind of think that the idea is kind of cool or has some potential, but the pitch deck just wasn't good, so you're just, what do you do there?
No, there's definitely recommendations on the deck itself. Some of it's around the flow of information. Like, it could take, um, yeah, I mean, it could, like, some presentations, it'll take 5 minutes to really even figure out what the company is doing.
Sure.
If it's a 10-minute presentation, you want to make sure pretty early on, investors can follow along. So, like, it could just be rearranging some slides, putting the solution and product portion of it a little bit earlier on. It could be, you know, touching up the design, or, yeah, I mean, just being able to show a little bit more visuals of the actual
Yeah,
product itself. That'll, help bring investors in and really see the vision for the product
sure.
and the company.
Sometimes it's just too much text, right?
Yeah, exactly.
It's just like too much text.
um, yeah. So, yeah, what you need in your pitch, sort of boiled it down to six main areas here. It's usually, I'd say usually what I've seen, especially, for a 10-minute pitch, it'll end up being anywhere from 8 to 12 slides plus an appendix. But, yeah, there's some, you know depending on the founders and their presentation style, it could be, some founders will do like pretty quick slides. They talk through and present, and some will, do it more out so that they can do basically take a minute a slide or so and really
Yeah.
dive into each of the areas here. But yeah, first you want to set the stage with the problem you're solving. Really showcase like why there's a need in this industry, and then tied along with that, there'll be one or two slides around the solution itself.
Yeah.
Yeah, what you're solving, what the features of your product or company are, and how this will address all the issues you said in the opening slide that need to be solved in the space.
Yeah, and Jason, do you take there's lots of pitch decks that have been kind of pushed around the internet, right? They're
Yeah.
done. Airbnb is one that just comes to my mind. Like Launch Rock was another one that comes to mind. I think, was it HubSpot or Square? I mean, like a lot of these I've just kind of just they've been moved around the internet and say, hey, these are good representations of a pitch deck, or even Guy Kawasaki's his method of the pitch deck. Do you do
Right.
you do you recommend those, or do you show them as examples, or how do you kind of do that? Like, because you can just do a Google search and look up good and pitch decks, investor pitch decks, and you're going to get all these results. I mean, there's even a company I think was it Slidebeam that does like pitch decks at some level.
Slidebeam. Yeah, I mean, it depends on. So they're good baselines, and especially I mean, the Guy Kawasaki one is a good example too. I mean, he also has sort of the 10 most common, or the 10 areas you need to dive into your deck. But it should be pretty customized, like around your branding and messaging, and also every like different startups will have a different area that they really need to promote about their business. So for some startups, they're exciting because of the technology they develop. Some are exciting because of all the traction they've had on it so far. Some just have a really great management team they need to highlight, and like even if you take a look at like the PayPal mafia that
Sure.
all went on to start other successful startups, like they pretty much show their experience on, if they can show their experience on slide one, and then like the rest is just sort of icing on the cake. But I mean, there's it's mostly the same sort of key areas you need to focus on, but the way you highlight them, and
it's different.
the
Obviously,
order.
if you and I are starting a company, we're going to have a different focus based on somebody else, and
Right.
you may have two slides about that topic just because it's super important, or whatever. But there's always the
Right.
well, hopefully there is something unique about your company that you really want to highlight, right?
Yeah.
Is
and,
there? Go ahead.
Yeah, you might even have like two versions of the presentation depending on the type of company too. One for just general audience, angel investors, or early stage VC funds, versus another one that's a more technical, like either strategic investors or more like, especially if it's a biotech healthcare company, or if it's more of like the deep tech AI, machine learning, or blockchain space. You might have another technical version if you're targeting that type of investor as well. But in general, you want to make it something that just is like easy, more like, I'd say simpler at the beginning, easy to understand what problem you're solving, why you're different. The next portion here is is the really the team behind it, and the feedback on the feedback you've gotten on why this is important from the market, who your team is that you have that can really do this better than anybody else. So like, if this was a company that the investors were just doing themselves and hiring, why would they hire your team over some other team that would come together and do this? So
the question the question that always surrounds that is like, why is your team ready to do this thing today versus some other team or you guys last year or whatever? It's like, why is your team ready to do this versus someone else's team, right? It's always important, because you never know. And here's I think one of the important thing to people to hear is, you never know what the audience that you're talking to or presenting to, you never know what they know. So sometimes, many times they may not have expertise in your industry per se, right? Like a deep knowledge in your niche or your industry, but maybe they know someone that has direct experience in the industry, was a CEO of a company or something, or maybe their neighbor is that person, right? So they kind of tangentially know some things about the industry. So I think it's really important that people don't try to bullshit the other guy, right? You can't fake it, because you don't know who's in front of you. You don't know what they know. I think it's really important that you just be honest and kind of explain what you do know and all the things you're good at and what you're not good at, and just kind of lay it out on the line, and you'll get pushed back where it is, and et cetera, right?
Yeah, and exactly. And that's I've even done this with a few of the companies we've worked with, like just before they have a real or before they have an investor presentation, I'll send their deck over to either one of our consultants or just another like friend or partner in the industry, and I won't tell them anything about the company. I just want to ask like what they can get from the deck, if they can really understand it, and see if they can tell back to me in a couple in a few sentences what the company's doing and why it's a good opportunity, and if they can do that, then it's probably on the right track already, but if there's still some areas that maybe they don't understand, we need to dive in a little bit deeper and make sure that those parts are explained more.
Yeah, and that's that feedback piece you need, before you start getting serious with your pitch deck, right? And I say getting serious, like when you're going to show it to a real investor or a potential investor, you want to at least show it to 4, 5, 10 other people to say, hey, does this make sense? Like, what am I missing, or what's confusing, or it's just. I say it's common sense, but surprisingly, it's not always. People don't always do that. But you've got to show it to some people that have some knowledge before showing it kind of in prime time, right?
Right.
Yeah. I think that's.
Yeah. No, definitely. And then
anyway, one second, Jason. So here we're with Jason Krause from Boston, Mass. today, talking about pitch decks and angel investor VC funds. So hey, leave a comment, question in the comments. If it's a question, we'll hopefully answer it on the fly. Give us a thumbs up. Let us know what's going on out there. And so we're all about helping the entrepreneur in his journey. So Jason, not to interrupt, but I just want to let people pop in and pop out. So
perfect. Just diving into another question here on our next. That's up on the slide here. What should you avoid in your pitch? I think that's important too. Obviously, we touched on the information and materials you need to showcase in your presentation, but I've actually interviewed. Outside of my own experiences, I've interviewed some other angels and just gotten feedback around the Boston area of like what some of the pet peeves are, or just what their feedback on what to avoid in in startup presentations are. The first picture up there is actually just sort of painting an overly like rosy picture of of the startup scene. Everything's going to be great, everything's perfect, and there's going to be no challenges along the way. So obviously
all startups are like, all of them are like that, Jason. Every one of them are like that.
Right. There's all this there's always that U-shaped graph, like everything's going to have hyper growth upwards, but saying some of the challenges you face, these are angels, and they could be experts in areas you might not be an expert in as well, and sort of sharing some of the challenges too that you're hoping to overcome with the fundraise. Maybe they'll have some good connections for you as well that could help with areas you're struggling, or even if something is a challenge and you've overcome it, that just provides another layer of another layer that a newcomer will have to overcome, when eventually somebody else tries to do the same thing you're trying to do.
Yeah, so I think that the key there, Jason, is letting people know that you've failed or had some challenges in your life, because what's also good to know is what you've been through, to know that you can actually get through some hard times, because
Right.
any investor knows that whatever their idea is, it's never going to be rosy. So like sharing some of those things that you've just really done poorly at, or just had some really big challenges. It's super helpful to hear those things from an investor standpoint, because it just tells me that you've kind of been through the war and you're standing in front of me to still survived, right?
Right. And I mean, even on there's been plenty of cases on both sides. Like there's plenty of companies that just weren't really, or sort of stagnant, and you look at there's a big, or the company Twitch that was bought by
Oh, sure.
Amazon. It's a
Yeah.
video game streaming service. It started as Justin TV, which was just basically one of the co-founders like strapping a video camera on his head and live streaming his life. But yeah, I mean, they found like the biggest, or they found a niche in video game uh, semi pros like wanting to stream their content better, and people in that community like really wanting to watch it. So they went through a pivot, and then there's plenty of founders too that just have even had success in one company. Like locally here in Boston, there is David Friend from Carbonite. It's a big data storage company that went public a few years back, and he found his venture now is called Wasabi. It's a cloud storage and sort of cloud storage company as well. But now they're in more of the space similar to Amazon Web Services, but differentiated through more package and fixed pricing.
Sure. Yeah. So
But
the point of it is that the idea starts, but the idea, what gets funded or maybe what has the hyper growth is not what the original idea was. So you had to pivot, you had to change, you had to,
either pivoting and changing, or just new ventures come out of some of the previous companies and previous ideas that founders have been working on as well.
Yeah.
So it's important to showcase the full story and present that. One of the other areas wanted to touch on is just not doing your homework. So like pitching basically pitching a technology company to an investor that only does healthcare, or vice versa. Pitching a company that's in the seed round to Series B fund. Just sort of most investment groups, you can see their portfolio history and even their level of what stage they've come in on online, like sites like Crunchbase and PitchBook or AngelList. And so just dig in and look at their portfolio. But also a lot of investors are doing they're getting out there as well, doing events, doing podcasts or live streams. So just check out their content too, like what they look for, what excites them, and make sure your pitch and presentation, and even the fact that you are pitching them, aligns with their investment strategy. And make sure you're in the right position to do that.
Yeah, it's really just doing, like you said, just doing your homework, man. It's because it's not you can find information about, investor groups and angel, angel investors sometimes a little harder, but you can absolutely find, information, about what people have invested in, and also a good way to, get introductions to investors is talk to, companies, CEOs of companies, what they've that already been invested into by something that you think is a good match for your company, and talk to that CEO, and maybe get some feedback, and maybe they turn out to be a great fit, or maybe they don't. But you can also sometimes get introductions from that CEO who was funded by that company, right? So
Yeah, definitely.
you just gotta do your homework, man.
No, exactly, and that's a great point. Yeah, we've actually, yeah, that's a great way to get into different groups. Like, the the most startup founders are pretty open to networking, connecting with other people that have been in their or that are in a position to starting their own companies. And yeah, they also can see this as an opportunity to, if they think you're a good fit, like to add more value to their investors by making introductions into a new portfolio company.
Yeah,
So yeah, that's definitely great way to both get more feedback and get introductions into different groups.
yeah. And Jason, are there any kind of what I would call tricks that you've seen that help people, you know, kind of just find the right groups, right? Because again, you don't want to shoot with a rifle. My belief is you want to shoot with a rifle, not with a shotgun. So, helping understand the investor before you approach them. Is there any like tricks, the things that you've learned outside of obviously talking to the CEOs of something that's already been invested into, or any other tricks that you've seen that you've learned over the years?
Yeah, so I'd say sort of, yeah, I mean there's different approaches, like even on the more like shotgun cold email approach, there's ways to make it a little bit warmer. If you've watched some of their videos, listen to their podcasts,
Yeah,
even
yeah,
met them at an event, you can mention that, or read one of their books. Like, start off with that and ask for a conversation from there. It's yeah, it makes it a connection like they're excited about, and they know you've done a little bit of your homework there and tried to get to know them and what they're interested in. Also, just even in the outreach itself, no matter who it is, like, you can keep that part, if you can keep it relatively short but exciting. Even just like three three main bullet points, like sort of woven into your paragraph introduction or whatever, that showcase like
yeah,
a few things. You've either, or I'd say like the most, if you can pin down the three most important parts of your business, whether it's the the great management team you have on board, the traction you've gotten with users, or just the market opportunity that's really
yeah.
ripe for
Something
disruption.
that something that you need to highlight for your company, if you can throw those because you got to remember these guys are getting lots of these emails, so the likelihood of you getting traction with that is very tough. But
Right.
but if you keep it short, they actually might even read something. So
Yeah.
the long emails just don't get read.
Right. Yeah. Keep the email part pretty short. Ask for something like, that you're looking for a call or meeting. So have some sort of call to action on it, and then include the pitch deck. Yeah, you don't need to have paragraphs of long emails before you even meet with the investor.
Yeah.
And definitely do follow ups, and find if they are interested, or if they're not, why, and like what stage they might be interested in something like this.
Yeah.
Um, but yeah, if there's also many different options as showcased on this slide here. There's even with the angels, there's individuals that that'll invest directly. They might have a portfolio of deals, or there might be more active angels that are like also taking on some advisory roles in different companies and really getting involved with the startups they invest in. There's angel groups, which there's actually, most cities across the country have a lot of angel groups. There's the Angel Capital Association, which basically lists. You can go on their website and they list all the angel groups that are a member across the country. And I know, like here in Boston, there's 10 different groups. Some are open to any type of investment. Some are like biotech specific or technology specific, or even I think there's a couple like food and beverage ones as well. But yeah, you can leverage some of those resources and apply and try and find, like, usually I recommend actually applying to the group, but also finding somebody like either through LinkedIn or through portfolio company, other referral channels that you can connect with and say, I just applied to this group looking for some more advice and feedback on it, and see if they can help like push it along the review process and get you in front of the group as a whole there.
Sure. Yeah, there's and what's interesting for like cities in the U.S. that don't have, like Boston's a ton of resources, Seattle a ton of resources, the Silicon Valley tons of resources, but you go to smaller cities in the U.S., Albuquerque, New Mexico, or Jacksonville, Florida, Louisville, Kentucky. These places don't have like tons of resources, and so they may not have 3 or 4 angel groups, but there's probably a few people that may not be a perfectly formed angel group, but there is probably a few people that get together and talk about investments. I mean, so you do, even in the smaller cities in the U.S., they still exist, but they may be a little ad hoc versus more formalized in the bigger cities that that just make it easier to kind of get to them.
Right. Yeah, and I mean, there's been pushes in a lot of the smaller cities too to incentivize investment. Not just to incentivize entrepreneurship, but also investment in the startup space. So like, I know there's a few states like Iowa, Maine, a few others that have investor tax credits that if you invest in a company in that space, you'll get a portion of your investment back as a tax credit. And they're really pushing the local community or even outside investors to put money into their local startups instead of just focusing on more of the traditional startup hubs.
Yeah. There's the angel groups are they're great to work with, because one of the things I do like about them, most of them at least, they give you a lot of feedback, right? They let you know the good and bad. Where VCs most of the time they just say no thanks, right? It's kind of, that's it, just because they have so much more volume coming at them versus a smaller angel group. But yeah, that's one of the things I do like. We have a couple really active angel groups here in Seattle, and they're good about giving feedback.
Right. And it depends on the type too. VCs, and they come in all sort of shapes and sizes and focus on different stages too. But in general, there's startups that need to go more of the VC route, either earlier on or at a later stage. If it's something that really needs a lot of capital and needs to be like the one in their market that is really a leader, like something like an Uber, Airbnb couldn't really have been
sure.
I don't think it could have been funded from angel groups, or because those they have to have sort of both sides of the marketplace. They have to have a lot of capital to expand really quickly before somebody else in the market takes over.
Yeah.
Whereas if you look at, there's been a lot of successful companies that can, survive on even like under a few $1,000,000 in capital, or even, a little bit more, or even ones that get acquired and merge with large companies in the space that might have been funded by, $1.5 million angel investment, and then they grow and scale the company and get sold to a large in a large acquisition deal.
Yeah.
But it's you have to find sort of the right fit for your startup.
Yeah. Well, so we're here talking with Jason Krause out of Boston, Mass, talking about pitch decks and angel investors, and what's important for both of those groups. So, kind of finishing up here, Jason, what are some couple of things you'd like to kind of finalize? Kind of like, hey, here's the key points, at least that I've learned, at least for obviously the groups that you're involved with in Boston. Like, what are some things that you think are just really important that you don't want people to forget?
Yeah, I'd say, when you're pitching, you're telling a story, you're getting people excited about what you're doing, and you can't, don't forget that you're still pitching to other people, and really try and connect with them, like put them in the shoes of the customer, whether or not that's them. If really, make this something that they want to go tell their friends about. They want to they can see themselves bragging 5 years from now that they were the one that got in early
Sure.
on your company. And I mean, I think connecting with people first, presenting this as something, and definitely also getting feedback and showcasing that. It's great if you can have sales revenue numbers going into the time you need to fundraise, but even if you don't, make sure you're out there talking with potential customers, and getting feedback you can showcase to investors and show them that there's really people that are interested in this. We just need to fund it and get more money behind it to execute on our vision.
Yeah. Well, Jason, thanks a lot for being here today. I really appreciate it. It's been fun. I always like to hear we're on different coasts of the U.S., so it's always good to hear different viewpoints from your side versus here in Seattle. Thanks again for doing it, and thanks for joining Startup Grind. How long have you been in Startup Grind?
A little over a year now.
Okay.
So good. Since May of last year.
Yeah. Well, good. Well, again, thanks for being here, and we will. I'm sure we'll see each other in February. So keep up the great work, and keep helping the startups move forward. And we will talk to you later. So have a great everyone. Thanks for stopping by. Look forward to seeing you next Tuesday on another episode. And take care. Have an amazing day. Bye-bye.
Thanks. This was great. Thank you.